Welcome back for episode 3 of Talk Trashy. On this episode, we are going to focus mainly on trail tales, specifically on best and worst across both our through hikes of different categories. And just thought it's an opportunity just to share some of our stories from trail that come, even I would say the worst, right? Our fond memories.
Yeah. It's a little bit more of a chit chat kind of episode, sprinkled in with maybe some advice too.
Yeah, some hot takes, maybe controversial opinions.
Yeah.
I'm feeling sentimental because this week I got my PCT tattoo. Finally.
Oh, okay. A couple months later.
The Speedgoat got hers without me, like months before. But we both have pretty similar matching tattoos on our ankle for both the AT and then added the PCT onto it. And it was all Speedgoat's brainchild.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my favorite thing about your tattoo is that she incorporated a goat into it.
Yeah. So I have a little goat jumping over the Appalachian Trail symbol.
So just another thing to be thinking about if you're through hiking and you are into tattoos. You have 5 to 6 months to think of a tattoo to commemorate your through hike with.
Yep. And it might be something based off the best thing that you've seen on trail or the worst thing.
Good segue.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to kick it off with something?
We'll jump right into it. So first, we're just going to do our best and worst day on trail, which is funny because the best day was probably harder for me to like pinpoint because I had so many days where I was like, oh, this was fabulous and this was great and this was great. And then the worst day, I was like, oh, I know exactly which day that is. And if I am correct in what your worst day was too, I think they are both related to sickness, not even like anything really trail related.
Speedgoat's qualifier for worst day on trail is that you have to cry on trail.
Yeah. There must be tears at some point.
All right, so let's get the worst out of the way. What was your? And I'm pretty sure I know yours based on that hint.
Yeah. So it was when we had come back from our family trip. So halfway through the Appalachian Trail, we had gotten off for 10 days to go to Iceland. It was a family trip we had planned and postponed with COVID and everything. So it just ended up happening that it was like while we were on our through hike. We had gotten back from Iceland and like immediately the next day got back on trail. I'm pretty sure I picked up like the flu or something from like the travel. Did not feel well. We hiked for I think 2 or 3 days before the symptoms were just like way too much. We woke up super early this one morning to hike because it was going to get really hot that day. So I had not slept very well that night. Woke up super early to hike and it was already pretty hot in the morning. We were on the roller coaster part of the Virginia section. For those of you who know that section, it is like a roller coaster. You're just going up and down and up and down.
It's literally named the roller coaster. Like there's a sign that says, welcome to the roller coaster.
Yeah, like enjoy the ride. I did not enjoy it. About like, I don't know, halfway through the roller coaster, we stopped for lunch and I just sat down. My whole body ached and I was just like not about it. I started crying. Riv decided, because we lived in Maryland at that point, like 45 minutes away from trail, she was like, we should just have one of the boys, our partners, come pick us up. We'll stay back like home for a couple of days until you feel better and come back. So she ended up coordinating that whole thing. But I think the funniest thing was that she, was trying to figure out where the best out point was for us at that point. And would mean that we had to hike another like 5 miles or
Mhm.
something like that. And you thought I was gonna like deteriorate if you told me it was 5 miles. You told me 5 miles, and I was like, why are we still sitting here? Let's go. I'm out. These are going to be the fastest 5 miles I've ever hiked.
It was not, by the way. It took us like 3 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was my worst day.
True. To your qualification, you did cry.
Yep.
I had no idea what was going on. I had just gone to get water, and I come back, and you're sobbing.
Yeah.
Okay, well, my worst day is related to yours, also sickness related. Mine was on the PCT when I caught norovirus. So norovirus, right? Like that's like one of the boogeymans of thru hiking, and I will say it sucks. It royally sucked. However, it was not trail altering. Like it did not like ruin our thru hike. It did not like throw off too many plans. It like did not. It was like no hospitalization. Like it was just uncomfortable. And primarily because we were camping, we were going north into a place called Syed Valley. And for those of you who are not familiar with that section, it is in Northern California, and you are pretty much up like in the mountains in this ridge, and then you come down the valley into Syed. And one, Syed Valley is not a city or a town. It is an RV park and a grocery store. And
a bomb RV park, though.
Yes, this was probably Speedgoat's favorite stay of the entire trail, was me being wildly sick at this RV park. We woke up and had 21 miles of trail into Syed Valley. And I had been vomiting the entire night because, noro can only hit in the middle of the night, apparently. And unfortunately, our water source was contaminated by deer, pretty much. Like, deer had been just shitting into this water source. And you could taste it.
Well, so okay, to preface it, I did not drink that water. Neither did our family member, Jedi. Him and I both did not drink that water. We kind of were like, this is a last resort thing. Riveter, however, had down the whole entire bottle, and it wasn't until like the morning after she started throwing up that she was like, I'm the only one who drank this water. And we were like, yeah, I mean, it smelled like poop.
Yeah. I don't know if it made it worse. I was so thirsty. There was no other option. So at bare minimum, I knew we had to go at least 3 miles to a new water source. Did the 3 miles. I was actually feeling good at that point. Like, we were going downhill. It was cool. 7 miles in, I hit a wall. I will say I did not cry that day, and it was only because I was so dehydrated I couldn't generate tears. If I could have, I would have. It was like 95 degrees. I was vomiting every 5 minutes. I couldn't keep water down. I was definitely in early stages of heat exhaustion, and we finally get to the trailhead. It is like 6 trail miles into Syed Valley itself. This is one of the few points on the PCT where the trail does like follow a road into town. And Speedgoat saved my life as I was like laying on the ground in the parking lot, and asked a couple there if they would drive us into Syed Valley to the RV park so I could sleep. And that was the only way I made it. I don't think I could have moved. That was the slowest we've gone. It took us 5 hours to do those last 7 miles.
Yeah. You looked pretty rough, but I was like, I think if you had stopped one more time, me and Jedi were just going to pick you up from your hands and feet and just walk you to town.
I wasn't even carrying a pack at that point. Jedi had taken my pack. He was carrying both our packs. which, before we give him too much praise, he is ultralight and his base weight of his own pack is 5 pounds. So he was basically carrying a normal size pack at this point.
Yeah, just one slung over one shoulder, another one, and then you hobbling in between us.
That is one use of trekking poles. Like, you can really, like, pull your body along.
Oh gosh. Oh gosh.
Yeah. Easily, hands down, worst day.
Yeah. I will say, I ended up getting neuro a couple days later. Not as bad, but I didn't have to hike. We took a backcountry zero. I was not about to move.
And that was our first and only backcountry zero. Was you sitting in the duplex for 24 hours, just like coming out only to puke.
You know what, though? I would still qualify it as a better day than some of the weather-related worst days on trail.
Okay. Pretty much all of Washington for you.
Yeah. Washington was a struggle. I am very influenced by the weather, especially if it's like raining and no sun. So, but to move on to a happier subject, so best day on trail, which for me, we actually have a blog post about this. And it's the one that's like, I feel like a thru hiker. And this was specifically like a really good day for me because it was the first day that I felt like we were really like encompassing the thru hiker vibe. I'm very like type A in my normal everyday life, and I wanted to carry that out to the trail to plan and everything like this. So the thought of like going into towns and not knowing how you're going to get a ride, and like if the town is more than 3 miles off, trail, what are we going to do? Like all that kind of stuff stressed me out. And then being like, oh my gosh, if we don't get into town at the correct time, how are we going to make the miles? Like all of this stuff that really just like does not need to be worried about. And so we were in the Smoky Mountains and we were running out of food. We were like, we are going to go into Gatlinburg. Initially, we were not planning on going in there for all of those reasons that I just told you, that we were just too afraid to, I think, try to find a ride to go into there. But at this point, we were like, we are starving. We need more food. We want some hot food, whatever. We ended up meeting another hiker who had thru hiked the AT the year prior. And she was from Maryland, which we were living in. And if you know Marylanders at all, or if you live in Maryland yourself, you know that it is like a cult there. And so we bonded over the fact that we live in Maryland, and she offered to take us into Gatlinburg the next day. So we were able to get a hitch in with her. We were able to go to CC's Pizza. We went and got more resupply, got Subway to pack out for dinner. We go and hit up the Knox store, and we were walking around there because you were looking for a fanny pack. Ended up running into an employee there that was like, oh, if you need a ride back, once my shift is done, like in an hour, I'll take you back. And we were like, score. And we went in on it with a couple of other hikers because she said it's going to be like $20 for the whole vehicle. So it ended up costing us like $4 to get back to trail from there. And we were getting back to trail after she dropped us off. We had another 3 miles. We get to the shelter. Everybody at the shelter had decided to tent for some reason. We were not about to put up a tent. So we got a nice spot in the shelter, like hung out with other thru hikers who had been in town that day with us, ate our Subway sandwiches. Like, I was like, this day couldn't have gone any better. It kind of started off rough because it was snowing and really cold, but like, that was the first time where I was like, you just got to let go of like all of that planning mentality.
Yeah, so we were really scared of hitching at that point. Like, we started the AT not planning on hitching ever. Like, I thought that it was an outdated form of transportation. Also, like, we're two young females. Like, everyone's telling you about safety, which is not to say that you shouldn't worry about that, but so the idea of getting transportation in to and from town was like insane. Like I don't know what I was thinking when we started trail, but I was kind of thinking we were going to end up walking into every town we went into.
Yeah, same. And then you quickly realize you're like, even if a town is within 3 miles of trail, I'm not walking there. Like, if it's a half a mile, potentially anything over that,
those
I'm
are
good.
bonus miles.
Yeah. Yikes.
That was a really fun day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. The food, CC's. This was our hiker hunger had started that week. And so we were just going through food at an alarming rate.
Yeah.
I think my best day, I'm going to do a PCT story, and it was when we were leaving VVR, which is kind of like a ranch resort-ish up in the Sierras of California. It's like 6 or 7 miles off of trail, but you hike straight to it. And in the Sierras, that's like way more accessible than going into a town because you have to go over a mountain pass. VVR is already up there, so it's a point to let you kind of get food or see civilization. And someone who we had been hiking with had done the PCT in 2 sections, and so he was finishing his thru hike at VVR. We had gone there to celebrate him, and then the next morning we were leaving VVR, and coincidentally, I just had so many like shit things happen to me that day. I broke my sunglasses. I ripped my Jolly Gear shirt, which I was like, maybe I almost cried. I slipped twice on that creek crossing and set my poles down the river. And for some reason, this day was still phenomenal. The hiking was great. The temperature was great. The sun was out. We made snow cones. So pro tip for anyone, Mio, the little squirt bottles, some of that fresh snow on any of the mountain passes. You just pick it up, you go. We were mixing flavors. We had packed out pizza from VVR, and this is a point when you have your bear can with you. And I carry my bear can on top of my pack so I can lay it horizontally. So we put our pizza in my bear can, and with the direct sunlight, it literally reheated it up. It melted the cheese. We were eating fresh pizza at lunch. It was phenomenal.
And we were like hiking some good miles. Like we're cruising through that section too.
We had stopped to swim at an alpine lake. I mean, it was just like,
yeah,
it was the backpacking day. Yeah, that's probably mine.
Yeah. And that was cool. VVR was cool too, because like you still stayed in your tent. Like it's not a town, or like, even though it's a resort, I use resort kind of like lightly. It's more like a glamping kind of, I mean, they have cabins for other people who come and stay there, but like you're still waking up in all of like your gear and stuff. Like it was pretty cool.
Yeah, we enjoyed that stop.
Yeah. So that leads nicely into our next topic, which was our favorite trail towns. Favorite and then the worst trail towns. Yeah. So for my favorite trail towns, I actually had 2 that I really liked. One for the PCT and one for the AT. So my favorite one on the PCT was Bishop. Which is pretty far off trail. It was like a 45-minute to like an hour hitch, but definitely like manageable. It took us 2 hitches to get there, but they even have a bus that goes like halfway if you're not able to get that second hitch or whatever. But that place was just, I feel like it had everything that we needed. There was like a nice coffee shop. There was laundry, probably the hottest laundromat we've ever been in our lives.
The entire state of California does not believe in air conditioning.
Yeah, that's my qualm with California. Well, one of my many qualms with them, but the hotel we had was like decently priced and pretty nice. Just everything there. They had a whole bunch of different grocery stores. And then probably my favorite thing, they have a movie theater there that's like $5. So a whole bunch of us went to this movie theater because we zeroed there. Did not have air conditioning, but still just like a great like little break. Mm-hmm. And then they also have one of like the best bakeries on trail, I think, which is the Shocks. I always say it wrong.
Shots, yeah.
Bakery. They have a whole bunch of different pastries. They have sandwiches later on into the day. Highly recommend stopping into there.
I think something that you can overlook because you're just like thinking about getting from trail to town is that there are towns, especially bigger ones, that are not walkable. And so you're thinking about getting your hitch just to town, but then when you get to town, it can be hard to get around depending how like far spread out it is when you're trying to do your chores, when you're like if you're staying somewhere, if you have to go do laundry, if you want to go to a restaurant, if you have to go grocery shopping. And there are some towns that are just way too spread. It's just you can't enjoy it because it's a 30-minute walk to get to a resupply, or you have to Uber to a resupply. And Bishop was so walkable. Like everything was walkable distance. The hotel we stayed in was a great location. So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, and that's why I liked the second one for the AT because it was literally on trail, a place called Duncannon, which is so funny because when we were planning our stops and Duncannon had come up, I remember reading, what is her name?
Jennifer Farr Davis.
Yes, her book, and she specifically is like Duncannon was not a safe town when she went through. And so she had kind of mentioned like she was trying not to stop through it in her book. And so I had written that down. I was like, we will not stop in Duncannon. We ended up stopping there. Best hostel. Loved it. Yeah. You know, the town goes right, or the trail goes right through the town. So you walk right by the grocery, or not the grocery, the laundry mat. You go next to a gas station. We got Slurpees there. Then walks right past the hostel. There is a really cool pizza place there, a really cool ice cream place, like had everything for what we needed. We just stayed there one night, so we Neroed in and then left the next day. Perfect. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, Duncannon was nice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like not having to do any bonus miles was phenomenal.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What was your best?
I would say Hot Springs.
Okay.
Very similar vibe.
Yeah.
So Hot Springs is on the Appalachian Trail. It's in North Carolina, and same kind of thing. The trail goes literally straight down the main street of Hot Springs. This was actually our first zero ever, which is wild. And
we didn't know what to do with ourselves.
I know. I remember at the end of that zero, we were like, well, this was boring.
Yeah.
Was it our first trail hostel too? It was.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a big hostel. Laughing Heart is the name. I cannot recommend it enough. It was clean. It was communal. It was really great. And everything is 5 minutes away. There was a gear store there that was well stocked. There was a brewery with an awesome outdoor hangout spot. It's just a town that knows hikers and loves hikers. And it's just very amenable to hikers. And it was just a great feel. They have that diner there. The second we got to town, went crazy, absolutely crazy, ordering all of this breakfast, and then someone very kindly picked up our tab. Another patron picked up our tab for us.
They thought it was cute that we were sisters hiking together.
So I loved Hot Springs. I am really hoping they have a good recovery after the
Mhm.
hurricane there. That was a phenomenal stop.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, on the opposite end of that, we have some places that we didn't love as much. Uh, Mine was Pearisburg, Virginia. And I honestly like had a hard time thinking of a bad trail town. Like there were none that I was like, I would never go back here. But these were more places where I was like, I was ready to get out of them by the time we hiked out. Um, and so Pearisburg was one of those places. We got in there and it was just rainy the whole time we were there. Um, the place that we had stayed at, just not the best like vibes. Like the laundry
Grungy.
wasn't the best. Yeah, wasn't super clean. Like I don't know. Even though you're through hiking and you're hiker trash and like your gear is dirty, there is like a certain level. Like you're like, I can live with some dirt, but some things like need to be a little bit more well kept. And I don't know. It just wasn't the best. They did have a really good Chinese buffet that we hit up and then left, but I didn't really feel like I wanted to stay there any longer than we did.
Yeah. And it was just like bad circumstances too. There's one gear store in that town and they just happened to be closed the day we were there. And so we couldn't buy fuel. And we both cook, and that's the only place we tried. I think there was like a Food Line or something there. They didn't sell it. We tried
We
going to
had
the
a
hardware
tractor
store.
supply. Yeah.
And so it was just there's not much to do there. So we Neroed in and then Neroed out for the Chinese buffet. I If we had taken a zero there, I don't know what we would have done.
Oh, yeah. Eating at the Chinese buffet all day.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay. Mine is kind of like the opposite. Yours, like Pearisburg was pretty. I don't know. I think when my mind, I think grungy. It could
Yeah.
also have been because of the weather. My worst one, I would say, is Heidelberg.
Heidelberg.
Sorry.
Yeah, mine too, because it doesn't exist.
My worst one, I would say, is Idlewild, California. It's bougie. I like. I'm not sure the proper term to describe this town. It's just. It's for more wealthy vacationers. Definitely not through hikers. It was very, very expensive, I thought. I mean, staying there, the food there, like not even resupplying, just trying to eat a breakfast for under $20 was near impossible. And we're talking pancakes. And
I mean, like everything there was just like expensive. The grocery store was expensive, and then like we went to go find a place to like get drinks, and it wasn't like for through hikers.
yes, they were very much like, please sit on the back porch.
Mm-hmm.
Which, again, understandable. Like, we might smell bad, but like when you're kind of like we're feeling like, oh, we want you to sit in a different section, not with our other patrons, you kind of get the vibe.
Yeah.
So
I
I don't
mean,
know.
we are a town that makes money from like tourist season, not from through hikers. So we're not their clientele. Like they're not catering to us like other towns do. They're like, we don't really need you. You need us.
We zeroed there, and the only reason the zero was good was because there was a huge group of us that split an Airbnb to bring the cost down. And so there was a house and like a hot tub and things like that. If you were just staying in a hotel, again, I'm not sure what you would do. If anything, I wanted to just eat regular backpacking food because it was too expensive to go anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple of the meals, me and then one of the tramline members, Jinx, just went to the grocery store and bought like TV dinners or like one of those mixed salad bags because that was cheaper, and just ate that at the Airbnb.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
So, because you lined me up perfectly here,
Yeah.
best trail meal. And I'm going to say this is like on trail, not in town, not best town meal. This is
Yeah.
best trail, like backcountry meal. And then your worst one. And I bet I can guess your worst one because she didn't even eat it.
Yeah. Best one, kudos to you. Riv got really into, before the AT, dehydrating a whole bunch of stuff, meals for us. And one of the dehydrated meals that she made was spaghetti, which is funny because all she did was take ragu sauce and put it in the dehydrator. And so it dehydrates it and it almost looks like a fruit leather. And then she put it in one of those like little bags, the like airtight bags or whatever, put pasta. And then she also had dehydrated some, I'm vegetarian or was vegetarian at the time, and dehydrated a whole bunch of fake meat. Mm-hmm. And had that in there. And then we threw in like some Parmesan packets. And so we had sent a couple of those things to us while we were on trail. That was probably one of the best meals, probably one of the easiest dehydrated meals that you made out of all the ones that you prepared. The best.
It's so impossible to find a marinara pasta. Like all of the mac and cheese, all of the brands make it. Nor this past year finally came out with a marinara pasta that is actually really good. I do recommend it. But otherwise, if you want to eat marinara pasta on trail, which is one of my favorite real life meals, you have to pack out jars of sauce.
Yeah.
And so, yes.
Which is funny because I hate spaghetti in my normal life. Don't really like eating it, but on trail, I'm like, this slaps.
Yeah. I like to pack out, one of my favorite things to pack out from town is a loaf of like a French baguette or a loaf of bread. Yeah. You just strap it to the outside of your pack and you would be amazed how good eating bread in the backcountry is. It's like a treat that you like aren't supposed to have, but you do have. And you pair that with some spaghetti.
Mm-hmm.
Chef's kiss.
And even if you can find any of those little olive oil packets, it's like, ooh. You feel like you're at a fancy Italian restaurant. Yep. Okay, so what was your best meal?
You know, one of my favorite ones is actually stuffed peppers. I don't know if that surprises you. You might have been waiting for me to hear hot dogs.
Idea. So I'm not surprised.
So I typically do this coming like my first night out of town. I pack out a bell pepper and then a Knorr Spanish rice and then whatever protein you want to put with it. My favorite is like a barbecue chicken or a pulled pork if you can find them. Those ones are harder to find, but buffalo chicken works well too. And just make the rice, throw in your protein to it, and then stuff the bell pepper with it. And the crunch, the fresh vegetable. I know, you should, blast me for a thru hiker to pack out vegetables, but the pepper is so light relatively. Just, you don't have to eat like trash in the backcountry. I'll die on that hill.
Yeah. Switching over to the worst meals that we've had.
I know yours is pasta related.
Yeah. This is likely user error though. So I don't know. Is it those Knorr? No, it's not the Knorr sides. The pasta salad sides. We had done this a couple times on the AT where we had made like a pasta salad. You can cold soak it, which is nice because it's like something meant cold. And so you cold soak it, so it's going to be cold. So we really enjoyed that on the AT. We had like these pasta salads that we would do. So on the PCT, I was like, I'm going to do this again. And I bought the pasta salad sides and made one. I had gotten this. Sorry, let me rewind. We were we were doing like a 4 or 5 day carry. And I was like, I'm going to get these pasta sides for my lunches. And I haven't done it since the AT. And I haven't gotten these specific flavors, but great idea to get it for a 5 day resupply. Wrong. Made it the first day. I got like 2 bites into it and was like, I might throw up. I can't do this. I don't know what happened. If it was just the flavor I got or what, but I added the flavoring packet in and it felt like I was eating like rocks with like pasta. It did not taste good. I ended up being like, I can't do this. I think everybody in the family tried it and was like, oh.
So, not to hate on cold soaking, we are very much team hot food. We do hot girl lunch and hot girl dinner. I understand the lure of cold soaking, but I think the problem with these pasta sides for you was that it had like bacon bits and things that need hot water to soften. And so it was like chewing gravel. Like if you got one of those hard bacon bits,
yeah.
Like,
and it was also just like the seasoning of it. I don't know. I put pepperoni in it and some like cheese too. Just like the first bite, you're like, oh, this is pretty good. And then you get like another bite or two in and you're like, I will starve before I eat this. And so for that meal, Jedi was very nice and he switched meals with me, which he cold soaks exclusively. So I think the meal that he had was like cold soaked ramen, which I like never eat cold soaked ramen. It always is hot. And I was like, fine, this will be better. And it was better than what I had. So the rest of the days that I had this pasta salad stuff, I ended up just cooking it, but not even adding in the seasoning packet. I just ate like basically like buttered noodles and threw in like cheese. I have a pretty huge condiment little baggie that I keep with me full of like salt, pepper, red pepper flakes. So I was up there like chefing it up. I'm like Ratatouille over here, like trying to figure out how to make this better.
The texture, I think it was the texture.
It was everything in general. And I think the worst part was I had convinced all our thru hikers in the grocery store to buy them. And one of the thru hikers was one of our family members. And for this like section, we had kind of split from them for that week. So she had that meal. We come back together that, after the 5 days, and she was like, that pasta salad was disgusting. I was like, I'm so sorry.
That was our only Walmart resupply of the trail, of the PCT too. And you will come to learn that a Walmart resupply is like creme de la creme of resupplies. And you wasted the Walmart resupply buying.
You know what? I think salad. You do better when there's not a lot of options. That's not true either, actually. I'm bad at it in general. Yeah.
My personal favorite resupply hiccup of Speedgoats is on the AT when she decided she would pack out a loaf of cinnamon raisin bread with some Nutella and have 2 slices of bread every morning. I would eat 2 slices in my normal life. You could have eaten the whole loaf.
I was very hungry. Okay, here was the thing, was that I had calculated out the days wrong, so I actually could have more bread, but I didn't realize it until like halfway through the resupply. So I was like starving the first couple of days. Especially carrying Nutella early on in the AT when it's cold. Nutella freezes. Mm-hmm. So it's not like peanut butter where it's still like spreadable, like it freezes. Like you have to
like chip it.
Yes. So I'm like trying to chip this Nutella out onto my like 2 slices of cinnamon swirl bread. Yeah. Mm.
I'm surprised you kept that thing intact.
Yeah. Well,
My worst, and so I'm gonna caveat this because I just said Nor has that marinara pasta that is phenomenal because it's like an instant marinara sauce. Otherwise, any of the Nor pastas I can't do. The Nor rice, the rices are all fine, but I have now tried so many of the Nor pastas, like the chicken one. I've tried some cheese ones, and there was one specifically that I made early on the trail, and I
mm,
packed it out instead of eating it. I've just never had a good experience with any of the Nor pastas. They just, and then they make a god awful amount. Like you're like, oh, this thing tastes bad, and now I'm eating 10 servings.
yeah. Yeah.
I no, I that's the one for me where like, I mean, I really have to be in bad shape before I eat that for dinner.
Agreed. The pasta marinara one is definitely like the best one and probably the only one.
Yes.
And why? Yeah. Okay. Moving on to hitching. So I'm going to let you actually take the first part of this.
Yeah.
Because I'm still kind of undecided about my best and worst hitching. And I think that's mainly because we haven't had like terrible experiences
Mm-mm.
with hitching. I know some people have like wild stories, but ours have been pretty like, I don't know.
Yeah. Every person who has picked us up has been really nice.
Yeah.
I would just say more like, this is interesting.
Yeah.
I think one of our best hitches, we were going into Bend, Oregon, and the spot that we got off trail from was not the typical spot. So it was a much further ride into Bend, and it took 2 hitches. We had someone pick us up almost immediately, and then could only take us part of the way and dropped us off somewhere else. And he was so apologetic. He was so like, I'm so sorry I can't take you the whole way. He's like, I'm gonna, leave you here at this scenic viewpoint. It's another, 25 minutes into Bend. Hopefully someone will pull over here. And we got out, and the two of us, we, put our thumbs out. Cars go by, and immediately, like in that first swarm of cars, they all pass by, and did they honk? Like how we at some
Yeah.
point turned around and saw one of the cars do a U-turn.
I think they did honk, and then somebody was like waving their arm out the window. And we don't want to be those people when somebody pulls over, like we're like, we assume they're pulling over to pick us up, but I also am not gonna like just beeline it to their vehicle in case they aren't. So we're kind of like just keeping an eye on them. And then it like seems like they want us to come over. So then we just like book it over there.
And they're like waving at us over, and it's two older women who had been friends since high school, and they were having like, they hadn't seen each other in 20 years. They were having kind of like a friend reunion get together, and picked us up because we reminded them of themselves at that age out there hitchhiking. Yeah. They had heard of the PCT, but pretty loosely. They didn't really know that we were through hikers for why they picked us up, and took us into Bend. Even was like, do you need to go anywhere? Let us drive you to REI. And took us to REI, and was just so full of life and excited for us, and very like, you go girl, the whole time. And it just like, it's such a good vibe hitch, like restores your faith in humanity, which honestly almost all hitches do, because I am so thankful for every person who has picked us up and driven us somewhere. So
also going off of that, I think I do have my best hitch, and this is primarily because I thought we were not going to get a hitch. We were leaving Kennedy Meadows North. Yeah, we had stayed at the little like ranch kind of area there, like that little town or whatever. similar to like VVR, where it's like a campsite kind of thing. But they have like a whole store and a restaurant. Very like outdoorsy though.
Mm-hmm.
And they have this dinner that they do on the weekends, and it's like this steak dinner. So we had stayed for that. A couple of our family members were going to stay at Kennedy Meadows North, but we were going to head back to Trail and just camp there. So we had left a little bit later than what we would traditionally like to get back to Trail, just because it can be harder to get a hitch when the sun starts going down.
Mm-hmm.
So we had eaten dinner, got out to the road, and it's like drizzling, like rain at this point. And like the sun is like slowly going down, and we're like, we don't know if we're going to get a hitch. We might have to like just throw up like our tent somewhere on the side of like the road. We get out there, stick our thumbs out. We see a car come. We stick our thumbs out. We're not even really like ready. And this person just pulls over and is like, I work at the ranch. Like, I know what you're doing. Like, hop in. I'll like take you back up. And so that was amazing.
Yeah, that was another one where we were standing right at like the turn in. And so we thought he was turning into the resort. Like, it wasn't till I think I turned around to you to be like, oh, wish they would have picked us up, to realize they had stopped for us.
Yeah. Because I remember we were trying to find like a place to hitch from, and we had seen this vehicle coming. And so we were like, throw your thumbs out. Like, you just throw your thumbs out at anybody. I think we were a little bit like still like discombobulated, trying to like figure out like, oh, where, like, you know. And so we didn't expect that they were actually going to pull over. So yeah, that was pretty cool. Yeah. So your worst hitch?
This is back on the no AC thing in California, and we just had a very long hitch. And like, again, so thankful to the person who pulled over, because he drove us like 40 minutes. But there was he did not turn the air conditioning on in his car. It was summer, basically in the desert. I got out of his car. I was so embarrassed. The seat was like wet with my sweat. I was sweating profusely in that car the entire ride.
The worst was that it was like Tesla, like with like white leather seats.
I think my shorts were wet by the time I got out from like how much sweat I had draining down my back.
Oh my gosh. You know what? I'm surprised that was your answer, though. I definitely thought you were going to say when you had to basically sit on top of a chainsaw.
That would be my worst one, except that goes with that Kennedy Meadows North story you told, where it was a 10-mile hike into town and no cars had come by. We were 3 miles into the hike down. And at that point, like, I would have gotten on a moped to get down there.
I would have gotten onto somebody's bike with them.
Well, yeah, basically, in the back of a pickup, I have my pack in a cast iron skillet that I thought was clean. It was not. And my legs are sitting over top of a chainsaw, and I'm trying, like, as we hit a bump, I'm trying to, like, lift my legs up so the chainsaw doesn't hit me. Yeah, that was
great. Yeah. I would say my worst, and this isn't even really, like, bad, it's just, I don't know, sometimes you like get picked up with people, right? And like just making small talk with people and whatever. And sometimes the conversation is just a little weird. And you could kind of tell that this guy who picked us up had picked us up, I think, primarily because he thought like you were cute. And so it was just a little like, not creepy. Like I wouldn't say that I was like creeped out by it, but it definitely felt like it was like, let me show you what I do in my normal life. Like, look at all these cool things I've done. And it was like, okay.
Yeah, well, we put him off a little bit because we were hitching, but we had a male family member with us. So as soon as he pulled over, we were like, oh, hey, there's the third one. And he'll sit next to you in the car. and
Yeah.
talk to you the whole time while we sit in the back. And he
And
just
then
wanted to show us pictures.
as soon as he came out as our family member that's male, this guy was a little bit like, oh, well, you guys might be too dirty to be in my car. And I was like, oh, okay. Again, though, not creepy, didn't feel unsafe. It was just one of those things where it was like,
that was weird.
yeah. So now going back to more on trail, favorite and worst campsites, which I think we might have the same answer for the worst. Possibly for the best too.
Okay.
So we'll start off on a high note. Best camp spot. I really liked our camp spot right before South Lake Tahoe. It was one that wasn't really like established or whatever. There wasn't really like an one. Yeah. We ended up just finding it. And it was like really, I don't know. It was off trail. Like we went up and like kind of were just trying to find a flat place to pitch the tent, and just kept kind of like walking up this small like hill. I don't know if I would consider it like mountain. Ended up finding like this whole flat, like gravelly-ish kind of like thing on top of like this hill that gave us a beautiful view of everything. It was a little windy, but really pretty.
Yeah, I really liked that spot. It was just, and I think it's because we weren't expecting it. It was like we're just looking for somewhere to tent, kind of wanted somewhere with a view, and then just happened upon this viewpoint, just climbing up the rocks. And as you're climbing up there, there's no indication it's going to be that flat across the top.
Yeah.
You just, I mean, we had even planned to camp somewhere else, and I was going to go up there to eat dinner, and then you climb up there and you're like, whoa.
Yeah, and it was flat, which was nice. We didn't have any like sleeping on a slant or anything.
Which is definitely my worst one.
Yep. What was your best?
Similar vibe, and mine would be our night in Yosemite.
Okay, yeah.
So Yosemite has a camping restriction for backcountry camping, and so we had to do a pretty long mile day that day for the Sierras. And I just remember being tired, and we get into Yosemite, we find a park ranger, we're like, can you tell us exactly where we're allowed to camp? And she told us, and we were like, we will camp right there. And someone had commented in Far Out and just said, you know, if you go up a little bit from here, like off trail, and climb over here, you'll find a great like ridge spot, etc. And so we kind of followed that advice, and you're just, I mean, you're on the top, like all rocks. So we use a duplex, so you have to stake it out. So we did have to use rocks. You couldn't necessarily get your stakes in, but you look like you're looking down on the world. It was unreal that our tent was set up like on the ledge. If you're afraid of heights, this would not have been your vibe. I mean, we're like literally on the ledge looking down at this valley and the river and the trees, and just, man, those are the days that just make through hiking worth it.
Yeah. Especially after such a long day, and not knowing, like, Riv's right, like we did not know exactly where we could camp. So we were like, we know that we have to do at least like, I think it was like 27 miles, could possibly be more if they are like, no, you still have to keep going. So it was like the unknown of like not knowing if we were going to have like another mile or another 5 miles to do on top of that 27. Like, I don't know, but it was really pretty.
Yeah, I loved that one.
Yeah. So some of the worst camping, I think, it's camping on areas that are just like not flat.
And we mean like tilted, because especially if you have an inflatable sleeping pad, like if there's like some roots or like bumps or things like that, you would be shocked how well your sleeping pad mitigates that. But like if you're on an incline, there's nothing your sleeping pad can do about that, and your hips are just gonna hurt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think we have the same one for this. On the Appalachian Trail, especially really early on, at the shelters, there are, quite a few people that are there. And we had showed up to one of these shelters, and there are spots, but they're just not the best. We get to this shelter, and there had got to be at least like 20 hikers there. And so we found a place for our tent, which looking back, our tent was like a fortress at that time. So it took up probably like 3 spots for somebody else.
We had a 3-person tent on the
18th. But yeah, that was rough. I think
you're playing
right? With other people.
Gosh, it was just that shelter location. You were already coming down to come like down into the valley to get to a knock, and there was kind of like a ravine-ish, if I remember correctly, so you're kind of like already on the side, and the shelter sat up. So that was one of the few places where like if you weren't sleeping in the shelter, there were not a lot of camp spots, which isn't always true. A lot of the shelters, there's a lot of camping around it, and so most thru hikers will tent, and this one just did not. And so like there were maybe two flat spots, and those were absolutely taken. And so we're just clustered with like 4 other tents. I mean, in my mind, we were sleeping at a 45-degree angle. Like that's how I remember that night.
Yeah. You wake up and like all of your stuff is like at the end.
We had even put our packs at the bottom because we were sliding so bad. We had put our packs down there and some rocks as a way to catch us. So like our sleeping pads would like kind of like curve up so that you wouldn't keep sliding down. My whole body hurt that next day.
Yeah. It was cool though because there's so many thru hikers there. We had dinner, met some very interesting people. Still good, but like sleeping, not the best. Okay, so that concludes our best and worst on trail. And as you can tell, like some of these things, like we still have very funny stories about like the worst things on trail that have happened. And none of them by any means made us want to like get off trail or ruined the thru hike. They just added a little bit of spice to it.
It would have been boring otherwise.
Yeah. So that brings us to our trail mix section. And for this one, this could enhance maybe your best or worst day on trail, which would be a superhero trait. Mm-hmm. So this being if there's, and I'll give some examples, a superpower that you could have on trail to make your hiking or trail life easier, what would you pick? So a couple of ones that I have. Not ever having to filter water. Being able to hike 3 miles an hour, no matter any terrain. Every 3 pounds feels like only 1 pound. You always get a hitch. And then one, maybe it never rains on trail, or you get to pick like the weather. So if you got to pick one of those superpowers, which one would you pick?
This is one of our trail ponderings. You'll find when you hike with other people or even by yourself, you end up on the weirdest topics. And this is one that we have debated for almost an entire thru hike of going back and forth. And people have added some really good ones to it. Like instant recovery. Yeah, so you wake up the next morning feeling totally fine. One of the ones that I thought of, which you could debate this with the weather thing is you never have wet feet. So whether that is from rain or from water crossings, your feet never get wet. Which at one point I was convinced I needed that because I swore I was getting trench foot after
Drama.
5 days in wet. But now I don't know.
I will say mine is definitely not having to filter water. I despise that one camp task I cannot do.
This I don't understand. It is like the most basic, easiest thing of through hiking.
I don't know why I can never keep my filters from like not even breaking. I mean they do break, but like just clean enough to filter water at a reasonable speed. I could back flush it after every single time I filter water, and I swear that thing would get worse.
And she's like a Hulk too. She is like, I'm surprised your CNOx haven't broken without like absolutely zero chill in that corner.
No, I cannot. And tried to be free, didn't feel free with that thing. The Sawyer, I guess, is the best out of the ones I've tried, but still, like I feel like I'm just sitting there and I'm like I can feel myself like getting gray hairs while I'm filtering.
Yeah, and I'm dramatic.
I can't.
Okay, what about instant camp setup? Like if I snap my fingers.
Oh, right, I have you.
I'm not blowing up. The way that you feel about filtering water is the way I feel about inflating air pad.
Sometimes on the AT, we would, like, because we shared a tent, it would be, you go grab the water, and then I will set up the tent. Yeah. And so that worked perfectly because I was like, I hate getting the water and filtering it. So she would go do all that, and I would set up the tent.
That is an awesome setup.
Yeah.
Like, we could make these superpowers a reality. I hate setting up the tent. I hate getting all of my things out. I hate having to blow. The air pad really is a mind block for me.
Getting all of your things out, you basically just dump your back upside down. Her side is all cluttered. Just everything everywhere.
If you could see a picture of the inside of our tent, it is Speedgoats nicely lined up in a very straight order. And then mine in a pile. Or two. Or three. You know, in all of that, though, what would I take?
If I had to pick a superpower for you, it would be never having gear that breaks on you.
I am so rough with gear. I understand there are limitations, and so most of the gear, it's not their fault, except the ULA circuit. That was 100% its fault. But, yeah. Gear that can withstand anything. Man. Yeah. But if you have, like, the superpower of the pound distribution, you can just carry heavy stuff whenever.
Oh,
you can
true.
have all of the gear. You can just carry 3 sleeping pads.
Why would you ever want that?
Think about how comfortable that would be. You're right. I can't blow up 3 of them. My mental block stops at 1.
You're like Princess and the Pea over there.
I will never sleep at a slant. Ooh, what? This is it. I picked mine. That you can set up your tent anywhere and it will always be flat.
Okay.
That brain blast. That is the one I pick. No, like, anywhere you set it up. You could set it up on top of a bush and it's gonna, like, instantly, like, even out.
Okay.
That's mine.
I like that because I'll benefit from it.
So, for anyone listening, if you have any ideas or thoughts about fun superhero powers, hiking, backpacking related, let us know. Or canoodle this while you're on your through hike and think about what you would take. You would be surprised how long this topic lasts.
Yeah, and you will be surprised that your answer will change too.
Yes.
Depending on what what you're hiking in. Yeah. Well, I think that was it for podcast number 3. So thanks for following along and listening to our trail tales. And comment below on any topics that you would like us to cover. We have some things that we've been noodling, but we would definitely love some feedback of things that other people would like to hear about.
Yeah, what would be most helpful heading into hiking season? All right. Well, until next time.